So Christmas time, jump in my car, go back to New York. I'm going to go to work with a mason. I always work with him to make money, Frankie Savino. And I said, Frankie, you ready to go back to work? He goes, Joe, he said, the ground is too frozen. He goes, why don't you go back to that Gainesville place for about 90 more days, come back at the end of March and we'll get back to work. I said, okay. So I jump in, I come back to Gainesville. What I didn't know was the Steve Spurrier Health Club was going out of business. But another company out of Utah was coming in to take them over. And they bring in a new manager, a guy by the name of Butch Griffith. So I continued to keep working as an instructor, and then one day Butch comes to me and he goes, about 3 weeks into that January, he goes, hey Joe, he goes, I've been watching you work. He goes, I'd like to get you involved in sales. And I said, I thought that was like for special people or something. And he said, well, I believe that you are. And he goes, I'd like to teach you. So he taught me a few things about selling. And I remember the very first guy I ever presented, his name was Randy Radcliffe. And Randy was hemming and hawing about, I don't know, Joe, I don't know, maybe I should wait a while. I said, look, Randy, I want you to get started. He goes, okay. That was my first sale. All right? Now that day, I made 8 sales. And the vice president of the company, a guy by the name of John Carpenter, was in town. And he said at the end of the day, he goes, Joe, what are you doing for dinner? And I said, I don't have any plans. He goes, why don't you come out to dinner? I said, okay. So we're sitting there at dinner. He goes, Joe, today was your first day in sales, right? And I said, yes. And he said, you sold 8 memberships. And I said, yeah. He goes, you know, typically it takes months before a salesperson would ever be able to do that. He goes, what I'm concerned about is you don't seem very excited about it. And I remember looking at him and saying, well, it wasn't very hard. Because it wasn't very hard. You know, when I look back, this was the thing that I realized. That true sales comes from here, not from here. So when I talk to people about working out, it's not from here. It's from here. Because I live with what I speak. But a few days later, I was sitting in an office, and I opened up this drawer. There's this book, The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. I remember I pulled it out, and I go, yeah, I've heard about these positive thinking kind of books. Never read one, but I've heard about it. Let me just read it. So I start reading, and reading, and reading. I'm reading these things about these people who just had these ideas, these thoughts, and how they created things from it. And I mean, I was so excited about it. If you walk by me, I say, hey, come here one second. You got to hear this. I used to read to people all the time. I mean, I know they wanted to run out of my office. I wanted them to hear it, so they sat there until I finished. And so when I finished the book, I said, well, I'm going to set a goal. And so it talks about people set goals, people accomplish goals. So my first goal, I will be the top salesperson in the entire company. Now, there was a company that was out of Utah, so there were clubs between Florida and Utah. 3 months later, I was the top salesperson in the entire company. When I heard that, I looked and said, what's the deal? I read the book, they said to set a goal, and then all of a sudden, 3 months later, it actually happened. How did it happen? And then I looked and I said, you know, I started learning how to become even better at sales, how to become better at referrals, how to become better at talking to people. So I realized that was the power of setting a goal. But there was also things that I learned about myself and the way that I want to be able to learn. I worked, give you an idea, my first year in the business, I worked for 11 different managers. Okay? One of the things you learn is you want to become a manager. But there was a quality that I always looked for. No matter how bad, because there are a lot of bad managers I worked for, one of the things that I always did was I always tried to find one good quality. Instead of saying they were bad, I tried to find there's got to be something that they're good at that I could learn from them. Tell you, there was one guy I had who was my manager for 3 hours. His name was Peter. And I don't even remember his last name. But he came in from Utah. And he walked in, he introduced himself to me. He seemed like a really nice guy. He said, hey Joe, would you give me a tour? I said, sure. So I'm giving him a tour of the club. And as I'm giving him the tour, he's telling me things I could do to actually be better at giving him a tour. And I thought, well, that's cool. So he seemed like he wanted to help him. So anyway, I finished the tour, and he's meeting with the owners of the company. About 2 hours and 40 minutes after that meeting starts, he walks out of the meeting, he comes in my office. He says, Joe, I got a question to ask you. I said, what's that? He goes, when you started in sales, he said, did they promise you a certain bonus structure? And I said, yeah. He goes, did you hit it? Did you hit the levels? I said, yes. He goes, did they change it and lower the bonus? I said, yeah, they did, but I can still do okay. He goes, okay, thank you. And he left. He came back about 10 minutes later, sat down, said, Joe, it was a very nice meeting. He said, I just want to let you know I resigned. He said, I would never work for a company that promised something, and when they delivered, when you delivered, did not get what they said they would do. I thought that is cool as hell. Really? But I guess what impacted me was a person whose principles were so strong that he was willing to walk away as soon as he heard it. And he did.